I'm a writer, I'm a poet, you know, comedian, speaker. I take time to share my story to people, you know, through the internet and in person. You know, I do that by day, and at nights, I'm Batman, you know. No, that's I don't even... No, at nights, actually, I'm sleep deprived. I've got 2 kids. I'm sleep deprived. That's what I have at nights. But I mean, I say that during the day, I'm a content creator. But I say at night, what I do is I help brands and companies and, you know, people in corporate spaces tell their story in interesting and creative ways. So I've had the experience to be in a multitude of environments, from creative to professional, you know, to social, unsociable. And I just wanted to share some of my experiences within that environment and how the idea of identity is such a key thing for us as individuals. And the power of identity when you claim it, but also how you can be depowered when other people project an identity onto you, especially when we live in a Western society, you know. And I think trying to reclaim who we are is an important part of the journey that I'm on as like a second-generation immigrant, and even people that are trying to integrate themselves in the society are on. I wrote a piece for you guys. I should have memorized it, but I just wrote it freshly for you guys. So I wrote it down to share with you guys just before we kick off. Who are you? The place it says on your birth certificate, or the numbers at the end of your balance. How much do you take into account how much is in your account? How do you balance that? Because we all lie. We all play roles. Shakespeare says, all the world is a stage. All men and women are merely players. They have their exits and entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts. So sometimes I'm a husband. Sometimes I'm a father. Sometimes I'm the greatest Mario Kart player on the planet. Sometimes I'm somewhere in between student and teacher, Mandem and geezer. Sometimes code switching. Whatever code unlocks that room for me. Because it's survival, right? But when I walk into that room, do I betray the person I left in the previous one? Or the people that opened those doors for me? Because I just want to be liked. Ain't that why we buy Nikes or clothes we despise? Because I want to be like Mike, but at what price? Because I'm still searching for the meaning of life. Because the Oxford Dictionary betrayed me, convinced me that life could be categorized in a series of sentences. Maybe that works for prisoners, but what about when you want to be free? And we all have the freedom to choose. But does that choice really set you free when it pushes you further into a box, which you tick Black British, Black English? Then what about my African heritage? If I say I'm Muslim, then they call me a heretic, all because of all these identities that I've inherited. So who am I? Is a single question, but it has multiple answers. Thank you. So, my first experience of like being different or someone projecting an identity on me when I was in year 4. So I'm originally, I was born here, but I'm from Ghana. And you know what a lot of Ghanaian parents do, African parents do in general, is to put some discipline in their child, they send them back home. So I was in Ghana for 3 years, and you know, I did learn discipline. I learned a lot of things, but I picked up a lot of my African culture. So when I came back to the UK in primary school, I wasn't completely adjusted, if that makes sense, you know. Like in Ghana, in Africa, we don't call our teachers by their first name, you know. We call them sir, miss, you know, madam, you know. It's strict, you know. If you mess about, you know, it's not face the wall, it's go outside, get me the biggest stick you can find, and we'll regulate it there and then, you know. This is true stories, you know. I have the scars to prove it. It's serious. Through that experience, I had a different cultural experience. When I came back to the UK now, I was adjusted. Me and my sister, we was in year 3. And I guess we stood out in a way that wasn't entirely comfortable for everyone in the class. And you need to remember, this is like mid-90s. So I specifically remember one occasion where I was coming down the stairs with my sister to lunchtime. And there was one kid, an English kid. I don't know what, he's always been like, he's a bit of what you say, a bully, but I don't know what his issue was specifically with me until then. You know, he stopped me in the stairs, and he, at the time, I had an accent. I didn't even know I have an accent. I didn't even know. I thought I was just talking like everyone else, you know. And he mimicked me. He said, "Where are you going?" You know, he said it in the accent, innit? And I was like, "Oh, we're just going to the thing." And before I could react, he slapped me across the face. Like, he slapped me across the face, year 3, no reason whatsoever, you know what I mean? And I was too young to comprehend, like, where the animosity came from. I've been whooped by teachers, but that one hurt significantly more because it came from nowhere. You know, my sister, she's older than me, you know, was by my side. And the boy said to me, if you tell anybody, watch what's going to happen to you. And I was petrified, you know, as a young kid, I was petrified, you know. And what happened was my sister, she's my older sister, she let him go and she went straight to the teacher. You know, I didn't know she went to the teacher. At lunchtime, I got called into the classroom and the teacher was like to me, what happened? And still, at that stage, I was afraid, you know. Thank God for my sister for standing up for me because who knows how that would have manifested. But that was my first time of feeling like the division amongst people, you know, or division for being different or inherently being Ghanaian. Because in Ghana, I was proud of my culture. But all of a sudden, from that age, I started to adopt the idea that maybe I have to blend in. Maybe I have to find a way to fit in because it could be dangerous to be who I am. So that's how, as kids, not knowing your identity or someone taking your identity then starts to put you in a box that you're afraid to move out of. And this isn't just my younger life. As I grew up, I lived in Middlesbrough for a year. So I went to Middlesbrough. Everyone ever been to Middlesbrough? Oh, you've been to Middlesbrough. Oh, what were you doing there? No, that's a genuine question. No, before I start saying Middlesbrough is a shithole and you're like, no, I lived there, you know, I raised my generations there. No, you was working there. Okay, so you have perspective of Middlesbrough then. Yeah, it's like a very working class. And Middlesbrough I grew up in London, you know, and when you live in London or even a city like Birmingham, you have a very ignorant view of the UK. When I lived in Middlesbrough for the first time, I really understood the UK. You know, people say that the UK is not divided. They always say, like, you know, because they live in London. But how can the UK not be divided? How can we not be divided, you know? When some people use iPhones, some people use Androids, you know? There's clear division between... Sorry, I just have personal beef with Android users. Really? You know Android users? What's my issue with Android users? Okay. My issue with Android users is, I could be talking to you, and I'll be like, yo, like, just airdrop me this. And you'll be like, no, I got to attach it to a Google Drive and send it to you 2 hours later. Do you get what I'm saying? I feel like, you know, and then... We're not changing. And Android users are so passionate. Like, they're always advocating. No, you lot are indoctrinated. They're always advocating for the battery life and all that stuff. But it's like, I don't want a suitcase, you know what I mean? I want something that fits in my pocket. It wasn't made for me. Yes. I'll say that. But this is Black History Month. No discrimination. Android users, no discrimination. Don't discriminate. It's me. I lived in Middlesbrough for a year. I was in Middlesbrough. The experience of being there, we was in a basketball team as a group of young black men that really opened my eyes to the reality. One crazy incident, we was on the bus. You know, just about 3 or 4 of us, you know, 17 years old, chilling on the bus. And there was a group of boys on the bus. And they were looking at us. The whole journey, didn't say anything, you know, because we're used to people saying, oh, man, Tupac, Dizzy. You know, they're making stupid jokes. And these boys jumped off the bus. And the first thing they did when they jumped off the bus, they go, you niggas, swearing up and down. Me, I'm from London, innit? And we was like, that doesn't run. So in our stupidity, like, we jumped off the bus and we started chasing them. And they turned the corner. When I turned the corner, there was about 3 of us. There was about a group of 20 white boys all lined up on the corner. I swear, that was it. I thought I was going to die that day. That was it. I literally thought that was the day we was going to die. Do you get what I'm saying? With our pride, we was like, okay, we can't turn around now and run because they're going to chase us, you know what I mean? They're like, if we turn around and run, it's long. So it was like, okay, we're going to hold it down. I swear to you, it was like walking the Green Mile, walking through that group of boys. Like, we had to walk through them, and that fear, you know, that genuine fear of being afraid for your life, for no other reason other than the fact that you was black, you know what I mean? It's like something that no one should have to experience. Just because you're different, your life is actually at stake, or you can't go to certain places. And there was lots of reoccurring things that happened, but that really allowed me to see the dynamics of the country we live in, but also the dynamics of what happens when everyone is not aware of each other and we don't live in integrated communities. I studied law in university. I studied at University of Sheffield. And for me, getting into law and being someone of like what you deem as like esteem, you'd feel like, okay, I'm accepted in some capacity, the distinctions are not there as much, But I'll never forget this day. I mean, I never pursued law, and I probably wouldn't have pursued it anyway, but this was one of the reasons that I kind of felt it wasn't for me. Or not wasn't for me, the community necessarily wasn't for me. I remember going into class, one day going into lecture, and I'm from London, I dress how I feel comfortable, And I remember, I think at the time, it was cold, so I used to wear woolly hats, Back then I had more hair, so I wear them more frequently. But now I got no hair, so I wear them like this. But back then I used to wear them like that, That was the style, because the hair could do the rest of the insulation. So I used to wear a woolly hat, and I remember coming into class, I was wearing my woolly hat. And the first thing one of my classmates said to me, he said to me, "Bro, you look like a robber." And I was like, how does that correlate between me wearing a woolly hat and looking like a robber? And it was quite heartbreaking for me, because I remember at this time, this guy was also a member of one of the Islamic societies, and I was getting involved in that community as well. But I remember specifically at that moment, I completely withdrew from the law community. I didn't like it anyway, but I felt like, I realized, these are not my people. So I spent more time hanging around with people who I felt understood me, who looked like me, who could relate to me. But coming to university, it's completely detrimental for you not to integrate, because the whole point of going to university is to learn about other people, and diversify your worldview. And I feel like because of the insecurity that I couldn't talk about, that was in a way kind of stripped away from me, just because of little interactions, or what people call now like microaggressions. Everyone calls it microaggressions. Now, back then it was just like normal. This was like someone says something, okay, I don't want to mess with you no more. You're not my person. But now we can actually have the language to articulate it. As I graduated, I started performing, writing, going into new spaces, and you start to feel like people respect you more, and you start to view outside of like your physical or your physical attributes or your appearances. Like I got millions of views on YouTube. You said I had 300 views on my TED Talk. I have 300,000. 300,000. Give me my zeros. Yo, I was sitting there thinking 300. That's just my wife's side of the family. Like, she's Nigerian. 300. Yo. Oh man. Nah, I'm playing with you. And this is kind of like, so I'll be honest, I used to love Black History Month up until that point. And because with Black History Month, you always used to, as a poet especially, that's how I was just doing poetry. You'd get a lot of bookings, you always go in there, you smell nice, you get jerk chicken, puff, it was cool. But I remember I got invited to like this like esteemed, like private independent school, innit? I wasn't aware that it was Black History Month, basically. I was aware, but they didn't invite me under that pretense. They were like, we really like what you do, we want you to come, you're going to be great to speak to the students. So when I got there, I was so excited. And in my head, I was thinking, wow, look how far I've come. I'm from Wood Green, North London, and now I'm in these prestigious institutions talking. And I remember getting there, and I remember going to speak. And then when they introduced me, it was kind of like, because it's Black history, we've got this Black speaker, you know what I mean? And this is not to say that it's not a space for that to happen, but I remember feeling like I've been reduced to that. After everything I've done, I've been reduced just to that specific identity. And I think the whole point of Black History Month and the whole point of like awareness and inclusion is to qualify someone's expertise, not to minimize it, or not to trivialize it, reduce it, And I remember that specific feeling, because when you think about Black history, there's so many things that we never talk about, There's so many other elements, but we kind of focus on the conflict, and the clash and the disparity between us, And I wrote this piece inspired by something that happened recently. There was, Chris Cabernet shot him recently. That was a separate case that happened. But then what I felt was pretty distasteful is after that, they released a video of him in the club involved in an incident, And And I feel like the purpose of that video was to kind of like discredit him and justify what happened. Yeah, he was in a gang. Yeah, he was a murderer. He wasn't an innocent victim. But before that, he was a man. He was a percentage of the UK's population. He had rights. He was a human. He was somebody's son. He was somebody's brother. How do you reduce him to one moment which we don't have no context for? But I find that every year it's the same old story. Let's talk about black conflict, black history, but never black glory. Sometimes our options are always limited to trauma or slavery. And it's not that we don't appreciate the story told in Roots, but how can you teach us about the African family tree and neglect to mention its fruits? Because what about ancient Africans who created medicines, navigations, and technology? Why don't they teach us about the Dogon tribes in Mali who showed us knowledge of advanced astronomy? How can we never ever read a piece of African fiction about Cheddar Man, who was one of the oldest skeletons discovered in Britain, who had blue eyes but dark-skinned pigment? So you can teach me about Pythagoras' theorem, but what about the Shango and the Mumbo bones, the world's oldest mathematical instruments? Is it because it was invented by African women, some of the world's first ever mathematicians? Using bones to track the lunar cycle in villages, they calculated time before the Rolex. So if you don't mind, I don't want to talk about black history and forget black literacy, black ability, and black dignity. Let's not reduce our history to the pain and fractured pieces of our community. Black history is the history of our species, but it's also the history of humanity. Thank you. Sometimes it's interesting to be like in an environment, you know, where people are trying and it feels like I'm not shitting on it, but I just got to state the obvious. You know what I mean? Because like diversity and inclusion, like if you're gonna give me a job just because I'm black, I'll take it. I'll be honest with you. No, it's a tough economy. I'm more than qualified for the job. I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like diversity and inclusion should be done with a level of like empowerment. Like I feel like they do it terribly. They do it terribly, specifically like when you watch in Hollywood. You know, like I feel like it's awful the way they do diversity in Hollywood. Because if you want to make new characters and tell black stories, like create the actual stories. Let people create the stories. Let them actually, you know. Instead, they'll just take like historically white characters, you know, from historically white places like Neverland or Narnia, you know. And they'll just throw an ethnic minority in it. And it won't make any sense. You know, there's no explanation why, like, Muhammad is walking around Downton Abbey. It doesn't even make no sense. You know? They don't give me no context. I was watching this show. Crazy show. The show was set in middle of England. Yeah, so it's set in middle England. Like, don't insult my intelligence, you know? Like, it's set in middle England. And there's like, you know, it's like in the 60s somewhere, you know, and they're talking about one of the main characters, and they're like, wait till you meet Finnegan. Wait till you meet Finnegan. I don't know what accent that is, but wherever you're imagining it's from, that's where it's from. Yeah, that's where it's from. Like, wait till you meet Finnegan. Wait till you meet Finnegan. They're building up the suspense for this Finnegan character. So I'm at the edge of my seat, like, yo, this is wild. Wait till Finnegan comes, he's going to be a bad boy. Then Finnegan eventually steps out, you know, and Finnegan is a 6'5" guy with dreadlocks. That's not Finnegan. That's Leroy. Like, don't insult my intelligence. You get what I'm saying? Like don't insult me. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, put some effort behind it. You know, it's like I watched the new Game of Thrones, and they got like all these black men like in these horrible blonde weaves. You know, and it's like it's the Targaryens, not RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, give it some kind of, you know, don't cosplay. Because I remember during COVID, one of the biggest things that happened during the lockdown is the BLM movement matters. And as a result of the Black Lives Matter movement happening, everybody felt like, okay, I need to do something for the black community, which is great. I'm not ungrateful for that. But then what he started to realize was how genuine was that investment. You know what I mean? There's an interesting statistic where they say a lot of the people that got hired for diversity and inclusion office, during that time, Oh, really? Well, after BLM, the police force contacted you? Really? Like, there were so many opportunities that before BLM didn't exist, and all of a sudden they have roles and have places for it. And it's not saying that people don't appreciate this, but it's saying that if it's done, it should be done genuinely. You know, I was involved in 2 initiatives during the whole BLM movement time. One of them was called Black Seed, and another was Blackout Tuesday. And like, I work with a lot of startups, as the esteemed speaker said, I'm an angel investor, so I work with a lot of startups. And what they did was they raised money, you know, as a fund, so they could invest in black founders. Because if you look at the percentage, it's kind of like 0.1% black founders get any kind of venture capital funding, you know. And what that really highlighted to me when I saw the community come together and the kind of companies that they were investing, it's not that the talent is not there, it's just that the talent is not being given the opportunity to show initiative. They're not being given a platform to create their own space and exhibit their own voices, you know. And it's very interesting because I think if there's a use case where you are completely needed, then you're qualified, you know. But when it comes to an opportunity, there's always looking outwards, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes, especially when it comes to VC and funding, sometimes some of the black founders need the same leeway or the same opportunity to fail as their counterparts. Because what often happens is when you're in these spaces, you're there and you're so tense because you're feeling like, I can't afford to make one mistake. I can't afford to make any mistake, you know what I mean? And I feel like we have to be able to let someone come into a space and be a worker, not be a black worker, not be a diversity, you know, not always be associated with that title. I hope it's not. I know the black people are nodding, but I see a lot of red faces. Everyone's looking at this. Nah, I'm playing with you. No. I come to be real. I don't work here. I don't care. You can't fire me, man. I'll be honest. You know, my stakes are minimal. Nothing's gonna happen to me. You know what I mean? I'm gonna walk and go to Vodafone, BT, yeah. I actually did a talk. Yeah, no. But yeah, so. Yeah, because I think sometimes nowadays we're so sensitive when it comes to like talking about race and issues. Like everyone is trying to tiptoe around what's real. You get what I'm saying? The other day I went into Girls. Are you guys familiar with Girls? Bakery, yeah. There's Girls in Birmingham, right? Oh yeah, Greg's is like the bootleg version of Girls, right? No. Listen. Greg's is cool, but like. I find that in London what's happening is they're getting girls in a nice area and they're chucking out all the Gregs to the like Lewisham and Peckham and stuff like that, you know what I mean? I don't want to get into, I've already fought you lot over the Android, so I don't even want to start. I'm just saying this because I live in an area where there's a girls, so I feel quite proud of myself. I've migrated. I've moved up to the girls level of living, of society, yeah. I went into my local Girls the other day. Now, if you don't know what Girls is, a bread depth is when you get all the tokens, you know, you stamp, and they owe you a free loaf of bread. And I'm at a stage in my life where I collect my free loaf of bread. Real spit, I'm not letting it slide, in it, you know? I went in there, he said, just come back in there next time, get your free loaf of bread. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna come in and get my free loaf of bread. So I went in there the other day and I went to go and look for him. And my wife said I shouldn't have said it, but I did say it. I said, yo, I saw the member of staff, I said, yo, I'm looking for the black guy. You know, like, because he's black. She panicked. Like, you know, I don't know, like, maybe, like, she's not allowed to say that, but I can say that, you know? She panicked. She said, you know, does he wear glasses? And I was like, yeah, he wears glasses. But he's also one of the darkest members of staff. There's not that many of them, you get what I'm saying? You know? And she was afraid to say the word black. She was like to me, no, does he have, like, a goatee like you? I said, yeah, he does, but he also has all of this as well, you know? Yo, she panicked, she flipped out, she said, you know what, I think you're talking about Mark, I haven't been worked here long, I'll get you someone else. So she went and got me someone else, you know? English guy comes out, he said, how can I help you, mate? And I said to him, I've given up at this point. I said to him, I'm looking for Mark. And he goes, oh, you mean Black Mark? I said, yes, I mean Black Mark. And you know, I respect that, yes, I mean Black Mark, you get what I'm saying? And he said to me, Mark's not working today, you know what I mean? So I was like, cool, man. But I came in there the next day, I had a bone to pick with Mark. So I came in and I saw Mark, he was facing the bakery thing. He's like working all his bakery, stuff like that. And I'm already onto him. I'm like, yo, Mark, your people are wilding. Like, why are they being so protective? Why are they being so sensitive? And it turns around and it's not Mark. They hired another black guy. Diversity and inclusion is working to the highest degree and extent. It's important, that we, as a community that we have here, we create the new path, for people that are coming after us. We should create the new way forward. Because I don't know that much about leadership, but all I know is that as kids, we all wanted to be the Red Ranger. So if you don't know the significance of being the Red Ranger, it means you were either born way too early to appreciate one of the world's greatest legacies, or born way too late to be in the world's greatest centuries, the 90s, baby, you know what I mean? But all I know is that being the Red Rangers meant you were part of an esteemed group of individuals known as the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now, being the Red Ranger not only meant that you got the biggest sword, the biggest Zord, and you got to scream, it's morphin time. It meant that you were the leader. And as kids, we didn't mind being heroes, champions, and leaders. As a matter of fact, we were eager to be anything less than meager. So can we agree that mediocrity is something that we learn, not learn, but we're taught? Maybe Socrates can expand more on this thought. Leadership is the aspiration to be anything more than average. And we want to do that when we're young, but as we get older and life throws us in the deep end, it starts to the deep end. We only want to be first in line to the pub or the club at the weekend. Not understanding that we were taught not to lead. Because when I was a kid, my mum always said to me, Suli, one day you're going to have to lead your own life. But then she proceeded to teach me how to follow. Because the first game I ever learned was follow the leader. In school, I was taught to follow the rules. At work, I was always told to make sure I follow up on everything, or I understood the following. It's like my parents taught me to follow religion, follow tradition, follow the system. And I never really understood the severity of this until it hit home, when even my favorite TV show told me to follow the yellow brick road. So I can understand why my mum seemed bitter when I said to her, I want to be in a band and I want to be the lead singer. Also because I couldn't sing. But if you ask me, the world doesn't need new leaders. Because leaders come and go like a common cold. What we really need is a society that discusses and united by common goals. One where everyone can contribute, whether you're young or old. I never understood why you have to be 18 plus to vote, because that's way too late to fix the mistakes made by the previous generation. It's way too late. Because what we don't need is new leaders, we need new ideas. Ideas that tell us that you don't have to think like this, walk like that, or talk like that, because you and me are different. And listen to this, because this is wisdom. People die, but ideas live forever. Because if you think about it, great ideas is all the greatest leaders ever were. Nelson Mandela, freedom. Martin Luther King, equality. Mother Teresa, compassion. Princess Diana, empathy. So the purpose of us learning to lead is learning something that we already knew in the first place. Because we don't always get wiser with age. We train ourselves out of the things that are right. So stop looking for other people's ways to define you. Because if you listen closely and you distract all the noise, maybe there's a voice deep inside you that's telling you the things that we already know. Because as kids, we don't separate each other. As kids, we all play. As kids, we all want to be the Red Ranger, the Green Ranger. So if we stop looking for others to define us and lead the way, get involved, and we're keen to play, maybe we can be the ones that create the change. Thank you guys very much. Bless.